But the first one is, so what are your, in the first weeks of your chief, what are going to be some of your top priorities? What are you going to be focused on first?
My top priority is to be able to get around and talk to the employees of the police department, both sworn and non-sworn, being able to find out what's important to them, the things they like, the things that they feel we could improve upon, and kind of setting out an agenda from there.
What kind of questions will you be asking?
Pretty much like I said, I'll be asking them, what's great about the Denton Police Department? What are some of the improvements that you see? Because, you can get some brilliant ideas from your newest officer to your most seasoned veteran, and being able to tap into that is a real opportunity.
Sure. What about community-facing priorities? What were your top priorities there?
So it's to actually model the behavior which I want, right? You want to go out, I'm going to be out in the community a bunch, going out and talking to neighbors, getting out of the car, walking, talking to the kids. One of the biggest target groups for me personally is going to be the teenagers and then the older retired residents of the city. Those are typically the ones that are keyed in the most on issues that are concerning to both neighborhoods and students. I think that's vitally important that we give them a voice on both sides. Your middle-aged professionals like myself and like you, our voices are heard on a regular basis, right? We're typically engaged across the board. It's that group of elderly folks that can't get out of their house and go to city council meetings. They can't get out of their house and come to the police department. It's your student population that really they don't have time, and sometimes they don't have the desire to do that, to get involved and engaged. So it's taking the opportunity to get out there and get engaged the other way.
Which areas of the police department do you all look for to improve technologically, I guess, as well as your infrastructure here in the department as well? Have you keyed on any areas that need improvements?
We know a lot of the areas that are looking at being improved, those were identified prior to my coming here. But I can tell you with technology, the way it is, things that we got just in January of this year are already going to be falling behind on where technology is going to be by January next year, because it's such a rapidly and ever-evolving system process. There's going to be a new iPhone coming out by the end of the month. So it's always trying to stay on top of the latest technology and making sure that we're implementing where we can.
What about historically things that need improvements, things that have been in place for a while now that need improvements?
Well, that's going to take me being able to sit down and talk to the command staff all the way down to the line patrol officer and find out from them what are the processes that you've seen that need improvement, because those are ones that are using the technology every day. Those are ones that are using business processes every day. And the last thing I want is for them to have some cumbersome measure where they have to do 4 or 5 steps that aren't really needed, only because our stuff is out of date. So it's being able to talk to them and find out.
Sure. Are there any areas in the department that you think that may need more levels of staffing or need to be shifts in staffing to accommodate certain areas? Have you identified any areas that need support?
I haven't identified any yet, but I can tell you that in every police organization across this country, you're never going to talk to a police chief who says, I have too many people, right? You're always going to have those opportunities to make things better and run more efficiently. And that's just going to be sitting down and being able to look at how can we streamline operations in some areas and maybe redeploy resources over to others that may be lacking.
Sure. How do you as a leader go from someone who was at the top of the ranks and now you're officially in charge of it all? How do you see yourself kind of evolving? How do you adjust to that?
In many ways, it's just taking a step back even further than I did before as an assistant chief, and really looking at a broad spectrum on how the decisions that I make, that I take to heart, are going to affect everyone within the organization and also the city of Denton. So it's not a localized problem or challenges that I'm going to be looking at anymore. It's going to be holistic challenges that I'm looking at through a different lens.
Let's see. What do you think has contributed to some of the negative impressions that many Americans have of law enforcement today?
Unfortunately, with over 1 million police officers in this country, over 18,000 police departments in this country, unfortunately, you're going to have people that don't deserve the honor and the pride and the responsibility of wearing a badge of a police officer. The other unfortunate thing is that is not even 1% of the amazing work that the cops are doing on a daily basis across this country in every community, large and small. So I can tell you that, you know, the false narrative out there that people are painting police officers across this country with a very broad brush, saying that all cops are corrupt or all cops are bad, you know, that is just, it couldn't be further from the truth. The advent and the ever-evolving technology and social media, it makes things now that happen here in Denton, it's around the world and it's live. You don't have to wait for a 5 o'clock newscast to find out what's going on in Omaha, Nebraska. You just look on Facebook and it'll tell you. It'll tell you real time. So that really has, in my opinion, as great as it's been for a lot of things, it really does some instantaneous damage to any profession, whether it be policing, whether it be doctors practicing medicine. If there's a malpractice suit that happens in Ogden, Utah, you better believe that the physicians here in Denton are going to see that as well.
Do you think that in your experience, when something happens across the country, have you seen, you know, that it impact, you know, officers where you are locally, is that an issue as well?
Oh, most definitely. Like I said, anything that happens, whether it's in Philadelphia in a Starbucks or whether it's in Sacramento downtown, people, when they see us, we're the most visible form of government, and all they see is a badge. It doesn't matter what shape or size or color that badge is or that uniform, they see a police officer. So that's why it's always vitally important for us to keep building upon the great foundation that we have here with the residents, our relationships with the residents here in the community. Keep building upon that. So when something bad does happen in another part of this country, you're comfortable in saying, I know that wouldn't happen here because our cops here are not like that.
Sure. What do you think, what are your opinions on the use of red light cameras for traffic enforcement? I know that is an issue that's touched the department particularly, and not even that long ago.
So I wasn't here whenever that discussion came up. And obviously anything that's implemented on a citywide level like red light cameras is going to be a policy decision made by the city council and the local government. That's not something that we as a police department would make a decision on. So it wouldn't even be appropriate for me to even, you know, talk about what I would personally do.
Right, but the police department does review those instances. So I mean,
yes.
What's your experience with, I guess, with deploying people to review those? I mean, will there be? I mean, I guess the question is, what can the police department do within, you know, the policy decisions that are made?
Well, we can take whatever direction that we get from City Hall, whether we keep them or not, and just work from that. Make sure that we have solid policy in place. When we have employees that are reviewing it, they're doing it the right way. Looking at our grants, making sure that we are staying within the guidelines of those, and just having solid oversight.
Let's see, where are we now? We're going pretty fast. Good for both of us, right? Talking about, you yourself mentioned, as one of the first things you mentioned in your application, talking about the side effects of rapid growth, you mentioned homelessness. How do we enforce our police homeless populations? Because just my short time being here, I've only been 2 months, you know, looking at daily police reports and stuff, it seems like a lot of homeless people, probably because they've been trespassed or whatnot, or they've become belligerent or something, they seem to just be arrested, jailed, released, and the cycle continues. What can the police department here in Denton do differently, or what solutions can police work toward to maybe either break that cycle or make sure that there's, you know, an actual solution for homelessness here?
So, no, it's interesting because it's not something that's just localized here in Denton. This is like a nationwide crisis that we're in, really, when you're thinking about homelessness and the effects on the community. But I can tell you, as you start talking about restorative justice type models that are being implemented across the country for regular offenses, this isn't just going to be a police solution or a fire solution or a public health solution. This is going to take a collaborative effort with all of us working together to make sure that we are not just arresting people and rearresting people, that we're going out proactively building relationships with them. we're finding out what has caused you to be homeless. If there's some services we can get you, some training we can get you, medications we can get you, because many times homelessness and mental illness kind of tie together. And I think as a society, we have to come together and put more resources towards the broad spectrum of homelessness and not just keen on the fact that you live on the street. Because just the fact that you're homeless doesn't mean that that's a criminal offense in and of itself. But like you said before, we have to have buy-in from the entire community. So you as a business leader or a business owner, you're not calling 911 for one of our police officers to come out simply because someone's trespassing and you want them arrested. You know, it's going to take everybody understanding what are we going to collectively focus on and how are we going to move forward and target it the right way.
Sure. And you mentioned other stakeholders, everyone being involved, and you mentioned the business community, of course. We're talking about the police department. What other stakeholders do you think could be identified and work toward a solution?
Well, you know, there's already religious-based resources that are being thrown at homelessness. There's already county resources, city resources. There's always private nonprofits that are working. But it seems like not just here, but across the country, many times we're working towards the same goal, but we're doing it by ourselves. So it's almost like an uphill battle. Instead of us coming together collectively, if we go out and we send a representative from, say, 4 different organizations out together, maybe we can go out and get to the root problem of why you are homeless, get you the resources you need to help fix the underlying issue and not just target you because you're homeless.
Sure. On to issues of gun violence. The more routine things we see in police reports are stolen guns out of vehicles. What kind of solution? How do you police that? I mean, aside from telling people to lock their doors, which is something that I want to tell people.
Right.
But aside from that, I mean, how do you police that from guns being stolen to them being used in any kind of violent crime? I mean, what can be done there? What have you seen in your career that can lead towards solutions, I guess, or informing solutions, I guess?
You know, it's really taking the time not just to educate the public, but on locking their doors and making sure you don't leave things in plain sight, because that's, you know, the kind of the broad spectrum of burglary vehicle stuff. It is making sure that we educate you as a human being on what responsible gun ownership looks like, what can happen if you leave your gun in your car and it's stolen and God forbid it's used in a violent crime, someone's life is taken because you didn't show the responsibility of taking a gun out of your car. You know, there's a difference in leaving it in a locked, secured location and just leaving it in your unlocked glove box. When people break in your car, typically the first thing they go for is your center console, your glove box to see what's in there. So it's really educating the public and finding out how we can make sure as a society that we have responsible processes in place to make sure that people that have guns are responsible with those.
There was an episode just recently where there was shots fired near a council member's house, and that got immediate pretty much attention, I think naturally because it was a council member. It seems like every day you see reports of shots fired in neighborhoods in our Denton. So how do we ensure that just because this person's a public official that person isn't getting preferential acknowledgement via press release and whatnot? How can we ensure that those things are addressed publicly in other neighborhoods and for everyday citizens?
Yeah, I can speak very honestly and say that no one's going to get preferential treatment because of your position. You're obviously going to get more exposure because of who you are, right? Because that got more attention in the media, more attention on social media, doesn't mean it got any more attention than another homeowner in a different neighborhood who calls to report the same thing.
Yeah. So what's the structure going to look like, I guess, in terms of staffing? Do you all know that yet, or is that changing the?
Yeah, any changes that we make in the structure of the department will be in the coming weeks.
Okay.
It would be very premature to come in and start making wide sweeping changes without educating myself on why things are the way they are and if there's a better process to put in place.
Sure. So I guess my follow-up question of, do you anticipate any new additions would be in the weeks to, will the answer?
I don't have any, plans to implement any sweeping change or any rapid change at this point. I do have plans and really sitting down and taking a look at how we're structured. Like I said before, if there's a way we can streamline and be more efficient, more effective by moving resources around, I'm all for that.
I guess, another question I have is that, under the last chief, there was some characterization that there was some kind of, I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, but just, people's perceptions of the department and people that I've talked to here and there, that there was some, favorites were being played and, whatnot. I guess, how do you ensure that that the police department doesn't have this, good old boys type of persona or perception in the public and I guess internally as well, through the department and elsewhere in City Hall?
Yeah, definitely. That can be one of the most crippling, destructive forces towards morale inside the police department. If you have an environment like that, it's up to me and my command staff to make sure that we have solid policies in place. We have people in the right positions for the right reasons, that are serving for the right reasons, and having, very robust oversight internally to make sure we're not transferring people around because you're my buddy and because I like you, but because you can perform the job. It's a completely different thing if you're my buddy, but you're also the best candidate for the job. And you can't say that because you're my friend, you can't come work for me if you're the most qualified person. It's making sure we have a process that we can look back on and we can stand behind to say, this is the reason you were chosen, not because you're my friend, but because you were the best candidate for the job.
Sure. And on matters of personnel, I know that, just my short time in this job, knowing that, hiring for law enforcement, police officers and other positions, it's very competitive here and with so many other surrounding agencies. How do you see, I guess, that competition as coming in new to the DFW area? I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, what in terms of how competitive it is and what the department can do? What's on your mind, I guess, on that front?
I can tell you that is a significant shift for me coming up to the Metroplex where there are so many good agencies up here and we're literally fighting for resources and people, right? We're always in competition to try to make sure that we're putting out the best attractive offers for police officers that come here to Denton. I can tell you we have to make sure that we stay on top of what's the best benefit package we can provide, the best pay that we can provide, but most importantly, what is going to be something that draws our target audience here? And that's going to be professionalism, that's going to be reputation, and that's going to be how our citizens think we're doing, right? Doing a citizen survey once a year to find out how can we improve from your perspective will help us build a better product all the way around. So then we're going out to recruit, people won't think twice, they'll know that Denton's the place they want to be.
Sure. I want to go back to red light cameras. I know that you're acting in the capacity of leading the department, but I'm trying to understand your personal view on, as someone who's been in law enforcement for a long time, what do you think about when you think about red light cameras, the pros and cons? Can you give us some more insight there?
There's so many different pros and cons, but it's like anything else. You can get data to support a position that red light cameras are great, and you can get data that can support that red light cameras are damaging, right? There's not a right answer to it, right? And what I think personally doesn't even matter because I haven't been around them enough. We had them in Austin. I never had an opportunity to get a citation from them. Nobody I know has gotten a citation from them. So I couldn't even speak on a personal level how I feel they would impact me personally.
Sure. And I guess what kind of changes do you see coming to law enforcement in the coming years? What do you think the department should be prepared for?
Especially because Denton is growing at such a rapid pace, is making sure that we have processes in place, a 5-year strategic plan in place, so we know what the police department's going to look like in 5 years. It's making sure that we are planning for the growth out west. Those places are going to get harder to get to from here as we get more and more, the population swells. Our infrastructure is going to need to make sure that our roadways are prepared to hold that. And it's really looking at, are we going to have 300 police officers here in 10 years? Are we going to have 1,000 police officers here? So it's really developing a solid strategic plan so we know what our facilities are going to look like, what we want our department to look like, and so we can keep delivering the best customer service to you, the public, we can.
Is there anything you want to add, I mean, that you want to convey to people that maybe that I haven't asked or you want people to think about?
You know, I always want to take the opportunity to let the public know, always remember that the police officers that are serving you are human beings first. And these are some of the most kind and compassionate human beings you're ever going to find. There's not many professions outside of public safety where people are going to leave their homes and not know if they're going to come home. And they're not coming out here, by and large, to do damage purposely to the people that they're serving. They're really doing it because they have hearts of gold and they just want to come out and give back. A lot of the men and women here in Denton, they are from here, they're born and raised here, so they have a very vested interest in making sure that this community stays safe, because everybody deserves to have their kids be able to walk down to the corner store without being accosted by people, without being injured, kidnapped, anything, right? So it's really taking the opportunity to always reinform people that cops are people too. We're part of the same community, and we're no different than you. We just have a different job that we do on a daily basis.
What about people who, because, you know, just seeing some, and going through the reports every day, you know, you see some calls that are kind of, did you really need to call the police? And what do you say to people who may sometimes, this is my words, you know, overuse the police, you know, call for maybe no reason or whatnot? I mean, would you say, what do you say to that, to people in general who may, you know, just call the police for no reason, I guess?
You know, one of the most dangerous things that we can do, especially me as a leader of this organization, is to tell you, the citizen, when you can and can't call the police. It's just really using common sense and good judgment. Call us whenever you need us. We're here for you. We're going to prioritize the calls that come in. You know, calls that contain violence in progress or like a burglary in progress are obviously going to be a higher priority than a call for, you know, my son won't get up and go to school. But we're still going to come, right? Because who else are you going to call? Unfortunately, we have seen over the last 20 years in policing, police departments have been taking on more and more things that may not be a law enforcement purpose, but they don't have anywhere else to send those calls. So, you know, it's on us to do it.
Sure. Gotcha. And I guess this is more for, you know, our relationship with the newspaper, and, you know, the police department. I guess, how do you view your relationship to the news media? I mean, often law enforcement officials tell me that we have a mutually beneficial relationship, but sometimes it's not the case. I mean, how do you view the relationship with the newspaper or news media in general, I guess?
We have to have a good balance, right? We're not always going to see eye to eye, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have to make sure that whenever you and I talk, or me and any part of the media talks, that we're doing it as a business and not as a personal attack. Like, you're not coming to me as a personal attack, Dalton on Frank. You're coming to me doing your job, and I'm coming to sit down at the table as part of my job. So it's really making sure you can't have transparency without having transparency, right? Sounds kind of corny, but I can't sit in this chair and say we're going to be a transparent organization, yet when something bad comes up, you want to come talk to me, and I say, nope, not going to talk about that. It's a two-way street.
Sure.
But vice versa, when we're pitching the great things that the men and women of the Denton Police Department are doing, I don't want you to say, nope, can't do it. We want to make sure that, you know, we're doing this all for the right reason. That's to make our community the best the community it can be.
Right. And I guess in terms of expectations of, you know, when y'all decide, hey, this is something we want to share with the news, I mean, what are your kind of expectations? I don't mind, you know, you having expectations of what we do. You know, what do you kind of hope to the newspaper to do on that front, I guess?
Well, I hope we develop a relationship where when we have something come up and you guys want to come in and do an interview, that you keep it professional. You keep in mind that, like I said, these guys and girls are human beings too. They're fallible because we're human beings. There's not going to be a perfect reporter out there doing their job, just like there's not going to be a perfect police officer. Ours is just magnified because there's so much responsibility. These guys have to make split-second decisions out on the street. They don't have the luxury many times of sitting back and thinking 5 steps down of what could possibly happen, what could possibly go wrong. They're making rapid split-second decisions. So as long as you guys keep it in mind when you're coming to talk to us, that you keep it professional, keep it classy, and we're all in it for the same reason. That's to make Denton the best place it can be.
Sure. And it seems like lately there's been like some, this is my words, kind of like micromanagement coming from City Hall. It seems like things have to be approved by people in the city manager's office or whatnot. Yesterday there was an issue where there's just a simple arrest of a homeless person on a warrant and another person of theft, and it was like this ordeal having to get their approval to say stuff. So I'm wondering, if we can expect some kind of change on that front, or what your thoughts are of getting city manager's office's approval and everything, or because it does. We're talking about a partnership. It does delay, his job, my job, his job, all of us. So what are your thoughts there? And this is, I'm not gonna put it in the newspaper, but just
no, there's nothing. I'm going to be the most open guy you're going to talk to. Hopefully, at the end of the day, the city manager is my boss, and he answers to the city council. So whatever processes they have in place are going to be the processes we go by. I can probably surmise that once he has full confidence in me running this organization on a day-to-day basis, and once he sees that we're making sound, solid decisions over here, maybe that changes. Maybe it doesn't. But what we can't do is sit back and worry about all that stuff. There's still plenty of opportunity for us to build a very robust relationship and to keep the information flowing as well as we can.
Sorry, this happens. Then you get a recorder. Speaking of technology. Okay. What about on what kind of approach do you on high profile, unfortunate, news events, unfortunate crimes? I mean, how do you view? Do you kind of is your strategy to get out in front of the story? Do you want to, sit down and have a press conference, or what do you mean? What can we expect on things like that? Just in terms of disaster preparedness and whatnot.
So in terms of disaster preparedness, like if we have a major storm coming through,
like a major storm, or like an unfortunate shooting, or we have people get shot in bars and stuff around here. On high-profile situations, when do you want to wait for our questions, or do you want to send out a press release first?
No, you're going to see a very proactive approach by the police department, and you're going to get tired of seeing my face out and about. I can tell you that, because I have a vested interest in this community, just like everyone else serving here. And me being the most visible part of that is really going to lend to building that trust between the community and this police department. You're going to see the command staff out quite a bit, because again, we have to model what we want mirrored back. So I think you're going to see a significant change on how we communicate with the media, but I think it's going to be a positive change.
Okay. And sorry, one more question on you mentioned social media, and it can be sometimes detrimental to police work, but y'all's own use of social media, y'all going to continue doing, are y'all going to branch out and use other social media, or in terms of letting people know what kind of communications to expect? What are your views on on the PR side of things? The use of social media. What can we expect? I guess from
leveraging social media is one of the best things that we as an organization can do. I, as a police leader, public information office, is constantly pumping out through every vehicle that we have all the great things that are going on, right? And using that as a vehicle to get our message out, whether it's recruiting, highlighting something positive that a police officer did, highlighting some heroism that was displayed. It's there for us, so why not use it?
Yeah. And my final question is, through the interviewing process and applying and whatnot, I'm sure that there were some probing questions asked of you. What did you kind of learn about yourself as a leader and someone who, in law enforcement? I mean, what kind of challenges did you see, and what are your takeaways from the whole process?
One is a very robust process. It is very detailed, but I like that. I like the fact that when we had our community reception, so many community members came out because they have a vested interest in their community and their police department. And the overwhelming support of this police department that I heard during that reception it really blew me away. And those are the things that police officers don't hear on a day-to-day basis, and it's sad. They need to know that their community supports them. So I learned that through the process specifically here. About myself, I learned, I don't know. I'm still kind of coming off of the high of still not even realizing that this is real. You know, the day's finally here to get sworn in and get to work. There's just so much that's been going on. Things coming at all different directions. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
What did I learn about myself?
Maybe we'll follow up in a year. Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, I'll probably have a full head of gray hair by then. Yeah.
All right, well, I think, those are all the questions I had. We're going to try to get this story up by the time you're swearing in is at 3. Congratulations on the new job and welcome to Denton.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Glad to have
it.
you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to it. I mean, we have a really strong relationship. I think historically have a really good relationship here. We want to, take that to, make it an even stronger relationship as y'all's law enforcement changes and our industry changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we want to make sure that the accurate information is spread. So I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Because I've heard nothing but great things about you. So.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else? Do you need anything else?
Maybe tell us about yourself that's non-job related or career related.
Non-job related. I'm a horrible golfer, but I like to try. I spend an inordinate amount of time chasing around a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. It seems like they're Energizer bunnies. My wife sacrifices so much so I can do this. So, yeah.